Mike, back when Tim Houston became premier, he promised and delivered on that promise to rescind some of the rules that the Liberals had put in place that were really restricting the work of the Public Accounts Committee. But what we've noticed in the past several months is that the Tories on these committees have started to tighten that grip again.
It probably shouldn't come as a surprise, because the reality is making a promise like this feels really easy when you're in opposition or you first get elected. And then you start dealing with the realities of people who come to these committees who don't work for you, or maybe don't necessarily support your government, who want to share their own views on government policy. And sometimes it's not very favorable. And so to your point, what we're seeing is government members on these committees limiting the witnesses who can appear, and in some cases altering the topics in a way that could be more friendly to the government.
And we had a perfect example of an uncomfortable witness just last week when Nick Jennery, the head of Feed Nova Scotia, really told the government what he was thinking about what they're doing.
Nova Scotia is the only province to have received an F grade on the Food Banks Canada Poverty Report, which pointed out that we haven't had an updated provincial poverty reduction plan in place since 2009. We've seen one-off payments, we've seen tax benefits, we've seen government support programs, but they're not keeping up with inflation.
Now, as uncomfortable a situation as this can create for governments, the reality is, if you're really committed to making the best policy possible, you need to be willing to hear from everybody, including experts in certain fields who may not think your government is as great as you do. And that is a tricky balance for a government that on the one hand has to balance the needs of making good policy, trying to help the public, with the reality of trying to get reelected, and what negative or unfavorable media coverage may mean to those chances.
And it'll come as a shock to you, I know, Mike, but the opposition are unhappy with what's happening at the committees. But it's not just them. I spoke to a political scientist this week who is not only disappointed with what he's seeing at the committees, he finds them predictable, he finds them too scripted, and feels that this really is a disservice to the process.
Well, excluding witnesses often excludes information, often excludes things from coming to public light. The beauty of a committee of the legislature is that we can get a little bit of a sense of what's happening within the machinery of government.
The reality is, though, we're not apt to see a change here. What the Tories are doing is what the Liberals did before them when they were in power, and frankly, what every government that's come before all of them have done. It's a political calculation to operate this way.
But Urbaniak would say it comes at a price to the rest of us who need to know what's happening behind the curtain within the machinery of government.